Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The manhwa starts with a man asking if this is how it ends. He's telling everybody he's sorry, and that he was too weak, and that Chris should have been the hero rather than him. A woman tells him not to say that. We learn that he's the hero named Evan. She says that they all did their best, and of course, if Sir Chris, the genius that he is, had only learned swordsmanship a little earlier, he could have surpassed 9 stars and become a 10-star hero. If only that had happened, the two of them together could have been able to stop the end. And bro's pretty much just the goated of all extra characters, because he's a jack of all trades, but also a master of all. He was able to leave behind the legacy of achievements, and his nickname was the Great Extra. The journey of this Great Extra all started one day when he was 20 years old, back when he had escaped from his clan and dreamed of success. While working in back alleys, he saw someone pointing, and he turned around, only to see that there were flying wyverns, and it was the invasion of the Magic Empire by the Demon King of Carnage, named the Age of Destruction. While everybody was panicking, trying to figure out what they could possibly do to deal with this, he noticed that there was recruiting for a party that would travel with the hero, and that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him, and he'll achieve greatness, and when the war is over, he'll enjoy wealth and honor to his heart's content. However, that's not exactly how things panned out, because they failed, and the Dominion of Light ended up falling into the hands of the Demon King of Carnage. We hear Evan saying that if he could make it so, he wishes he could turn back time so that Sir Chris could be selected as a hero. Chris wonders what he means by hero, saying even if he could turn back time, he's not doing this all again, as one life of suffering is enough, and there's no point daydreaming about this at this point anyway, not when this world will soon come to an end. As they're all looking up at the sky, he says that this is really it, and in his next life, not that it exists, but if it does, he hopes that he's born the son of some rich family, and that was his parting thought. And it jumps to some time later. As he's looking down at his hands, he explains that he's actually regressed, and he had been born into the body of a young master of the Magic Empire. He explains that this place is called the Dark Magic Clan. As the name suggests, it is one of the 12 clans that support the Magic Empire. From what he could gather, he regressed 15 years back in time. To reiterate, he's returned to 5 years before the beginning of the Age of Destruction. And here he thought he'd experienced it all in his last life. He never expected to see demon beasts tending to a garden. And on top of all of that, he knows exactly whose body he's in, as his name is Christian von Baron Kazar. We see Chris in his past like, talking to a fox woman, as she was telling him about a fiend with the middle name of Von. And she explained to him that the house of Count Kazar is a branch family of the Baron County, or the Dark Magic Clan. Chris asked if it was a relatively weaker one, and she says no. While it is a branch family, it is in good standing within the Dark Magic Clan, and not to mention, they are extremely rich. And he doubts that he'll be able to find anyone within the Magic Empire who doesn't know of them, and that they have 2 potential successors. But the eldest of the sons, Christian, is a real bastard among bastards. He always goes around causing trouble, and Count Kazar eventually gave up on him. But this is old news at this point though. Chris asked why, and if he straightened up or something, and she says no. He actually ended up getting murdered by his relatives. Back to reality, Chris is sweating bullets. Then he says that he just wanted to become the son of a regular old rich family, and wonders why he just had to regress here. Why he had to be this person of all people, since he is destined for death, and he starts wondering what he did so wrong, telling himself to think. He awoke in this body with a coincidentally similar name to his, and it's only been 3 days, and that he's going to die in 2 years from now. And the fact that he was eliminated within the house of Count Kazar, a family that places great importance on honor, it probably means that he was an absolute dogshit human being. And if he just stays nice and quiet, he might be able to avoid his death. But he says that since he's woken up as a rich kid, he should just take care of himself and enjoy the wealth and honor. But he hits himself with a reality check, hitting his forehead, saying there's no way that'll happen. And that Ragnarok, the end of the world, is also the reason that the Demon King of Carnage started the war, and it was to put humanity up as a sacrifice to complete Ragnarok. And it was already too late by the time they realized it, and both the Dominion of Light and the world met their ultimate demise. So if he wants to survive, he needs to stop the apocalypse as well. And the Demon King of Carnage is one thing, considering he was the one to actually start the war. But the bigger problem is that the countless number of fiends of the magic empire are loyal to him. To stop this, he needs to become someone more powerful than the Demon King himself. At this rate, there's only one way for him to actually accomplish this. He needs to become the Demon Emperor and sit at the pinnacle of the magic empire. He's been given 5 years before the Age of Destruction begins, and he might as well give it a go. And if he succeeds, this entire empire will become his. It then jumps to his father yelling out to him, slamming on the table, saying that he told him to remain in his room, and for him to reveal his face here after causing the incident not long ago, he must have a death wish. And if he acts out of line one more time, he will personally cut his head off. Chris says that Count Khazar sure is one intimidating dude. But Chris says that he came here to apologize for all the wrongdoings he's committed until now, since if he wants to go forward with his plan, he needs to get rid of his horrible image. His father asks what he's saying, and Chris drops to his knees, saying that he is truly sorry for everything he's done, and it'll never happen again. His father asks if he's really trying to get him to believe this only a few days after his last stunt, and if he's trying to mock him. Chris wonders what exactly he did. He's heard so many stories that he can't even think about what it could be. Chris says the fault for making him lose trust in him is his fault. However, 3 days ago, he also mentioned that he lost a portion of his memories. To reclaim those memories, he reflected on his past actions and has realized just how wrongly he's been living his life. His heart beats with the truth of it. His father says that he's heard his excuses countless times. Chris says that's right, because excuses made with words alone mean nothing, and that he will show him with his actions going forward. And that he would like to be sent to the punishment cave, and he will remain there for a month, and show him a different version of himself. We learn that the punishment cave is a prison used for high-status fiends, and it is a place where not only is there no light, but all 5 of your senses are blocked. Even just a few days is enough to drain one's mind. However, it's perfect for him right now, and he needs somewhere to escape the gazes of others. His father asks if he's going to confine himself for a whole month inside of it, because he doubts that he's even capable of lasting half a day. Chris says that he's well aware of how difficult a place it is, however, he thinks that that is the bare minimum for him to trust him. His father looks down at him, asking if he even understands how many times they've had this conversation. Each time, he's only left him disappointed once more, but he'll play along and give him one last chance. However, if nothing changes after a whole month, he will banish him from the clan. Chris says that would be a death sentence, as there is a long list of people who will aim for his life once he loses protection of the clan. But he decides that it's worth the risk, and tells his father that he understands. But if he can prove that he has changed, he would like him to grant a request. His father gets a little annoyed, saying he sounds arrogant as if he is certain he will come out unscathed, but if he can show him that he has turned over a new leaf, he will grant him any request. Not that he will believe that will ever happen. Sometime later, back in Chris's room, the butler enters, saying the punishment cave has been prepared. His name is Cox, and he is a half-vampire. Chris says that he sees, and as they start walking out of the room down the hallway, all of the maids and butlers are asking if they've heard about how Chris has volunteered to enter the cave, and they wonder what scheme he's pulling. There was an incident where he insulted the young lady of the Poison Magic clan, and that it was an incident that the Count himself had to personally apologize for, and that it's pretty embarrassing having to save face against a rival clan, and they wonder when he's ever going to mature, but they still have their doubts he ever will. They start debating on how long he'll last in the cave, and one of them says 2 days is definitely the max. But Chris smiles as he walks down the hallway, and we see what I assume is his younger brother also eavesdropping. It then jumps to the punishment cave, and Cox tells him that they have arrived. Chris looks up at one of the statues outside of it, and it turns out it's not actually a statue, but rather a Death Knight, which is a guard, and he says this is pretty fitting of the Magic Empire. But he doesn't care, as long as it stops people from entering the cave. We then hear his little brother call out to him, and when Chris turns around to see him, he says this is a familiar face. He is his biological younger brother and a model student. His name is Thurn von Baron Khazar, and we see him instantly pull out his rapier, thrusting it towards Chris's throat. He stops just shy, but Chris doesn't even flinch as he looks down into his brother's eyes. Internally he's panicking, saying that scared the hell out of him, and he asks his brother Thurn what business he has with him, as it doesn't look like he's here to wish him farewell. Thurn says that he's sure he knows that he is a disgrace to the family, but if he sullies the honor of the family again, he will kill him himself. He asks if he understands that this is his final warning. Chris says he sees, it must be him who killed Chris in his last life, and he's personally met Thurn before during the Age of Destruction. He was a fiend famous for cursed magic. Chris says that it seems like he was cute while he was a kid, and he seems to have trained diligently at this point too, but he's nothing more than a brat against him who has seen the worst the Age of Destruction had to offer, as he tells his brother to remove it. Thurn asks him what he just said, and Chris says that he understands, so he should get going. Thurn tells him that he's serious, but Chris completely ignores him, entering anyway, leaving it just awkward as hell outside. Thurn starts yelling, asking Cox what the hell was with that attitude, but on the inside, as Chris is walking forward, he looks around, saying that he can't actually see or hear anything. There's only the faintest sensation remaining around his fingertips, and he bets that is on purpose so that prisoners can feel the objects they bring in, or else they might starve to death. An ordinary person would quickly feel mentally drained in such a place, however that's irrelevant to him, as he's experienced worse during his time as a treasure hunter, and blocking off the five senses is something he's wanted, since it will let him see further into himself. Without it, he can't overhaul this broken body. Of course, it also requires a lot of time and luck, but with the medical skills he's suffered to master as the divine doctor, and the bone compression art he modified from the circus, and finally the magic stones of different properties, it is certainly doable. He honestly thought he wouldn't be able to get a hold of magic stones since they are expensive, but he guesses this is the niceties of an elite clan that heeded his request, even though he's a good for nothing. Yet, in his previous life, he and Evan struggled to obtain them, as they had to slave away in the mines. The start will be with the white magic stone, which will purify the toxins. It is a boring but essential stage. It requires him to tediously clean away any toxin buildup across his body with white mana. Even the smallest mistake would cause great pain across his whole body. As he starts doing exactly that, he feels a tingling sensation, which I would assume is like pins and needles when you're sitting on the shitter for too long, and he looks up smiling, saying that this is a cakewalk to him. Some time later, we see Cox reporting to Chris's father. When his father asks how Chris is doing, Cox says that he entered the cave, and he's worried that it'll break him so bad that he won't be able to even call for help. His father wonders if maybe sending him there was a mistake. He had such a promising future as a child, and he wonders how he broke apart so easily. If his gift made him too arrogant. Whatever the reason, he'd rather he be fully ruined or died than live such a wretched life. And he's full of conflicting emotions such as anger and sadness. Even though Chris's words seemed very reasonable, he doesn't think he should have expectations. He's already tricked him too many times. He asks Cox if he saw anything strange when he entered. Cox says there was an incident, and his father tells him to report everything in detail. Cox says in truth, the young master took magic stones into the cave with him, including a dream stone that makes one hallucinate, and so they don't know the side effects. So they have to immediately open the cave. We see his father's fist shaking out of frustration, but he tells Cox that they can't, and if that's the case, then just leave him to die because he probably thinks that Chris is wanting to commit the Sudoku. It then jumps to a whole month later, as he's standing before the punishment cave. Chris's father says he must be a wreck by now, as the door slowly opens. His father is completely taken aback by the shine he is seeing, and Chris says he's been waiting for him to finally show up. He asks his father if he's surprised, and he told him that he promised that he would return as a changed man. His father starts to tear up, saying those are eyes he hasn't shown him since his childhood, and his father says this means he's actually endured it. Chris laughs, asking if that's a compliment, and his father tells him not to get on his high horse from something this minor, as he doesn't trust him still. Chris says that just means he has to work harder, and he must think that he barely endured the cave, but that's not the case. Chris was so busy training that he had no time to be bored. Firstly, he made himself the optimal body so he could master swordplay, and thanks to the white mana stone, each and every cell in his body was basically bursting with life. Furthermore, the Dreamstone was a game changer. Cox asks if he was really going to take that into the punishment chamber, and Chris says that he's glad he was stubborn about it. Thanks to the hallucinations, he drastically reduced the time it took for his metamorphosis, and on top of that, he created 2 cores. He shows that he's actually a genius, as he uses a 1-star spell called Light, and he used his darkness core to hide his light core, and the fiends would make a giant fuss if they discovered it, which is why his father doesn't actually think it's that impressive. Things in there would have been great, but of course, that is not all. As he sensed something, one of the stones flew up towards him, and when he got a closer look at it, he says that the dream stone is just a mess, and that someone was hoping to get him high off of it and break him down, but he willingly accepted it and took it head on, and he used it as a sacrifice for his leap forward. He tells his father that since he kept his promise, he wants to make a request. His father tells him to speak, and Chris says that he wants to use the Black Swamp Knights training ground, but his father says that a good-for-nothing like Chris has no place to be there, as they are one of the 3 orders of knights supporting the Dark Magic clan, and he must know that only the most elite knights may display their skills there. Chris says he's only asking to borrow the training ground, and he believes watching the bravery of the Black Swamp Knights would be a good influence on him, as he doesn't plan to actually join their order. His father thinks about it for a second before telling him okay, but to heed his warning, and he should not behave disgracefully before the knights. Chris says there's also one other thing he wanted to request, which surprises his father. It then jumps to the training ground, and all of the trainees are glancing over, seeing Chris stripped out. They start blatantly badmouthing him, and Chris says it must be because they are in the Magic Empire, where strength is more important than status, but there's one reason he came here specifically. We learn that his other request was about going to the library, and his father says he needed to get the Deputy Commander Melon's letter of recommendation. It's where all of House of Count Khazar's dark magic grimoires are stored. In order to learn dark magic, you must gain access. Chris says he understands, and asks why he had a condition when he's still a member of the clan. His father tells him that he must have forgotten how he tried to sell the advanced grimoires on the black market. Chris wonders just what kind of life he lived before he took over it, and that he truly is a worthless piece of shit. But Chris says that the most important priority right now is getting the Deputy Commander's recognition. He then looks up to spot Thurn and a lot of trainees surrounding him, as Thurn tells him that this isn't a place someone like himself can walk into. Chris says this is pretty troublesome, but smiles, saying that he actually thinks this is going to be a perfect opportunity. Thurn then tells him once more that this is his final warning and to go back, and he assumes that he doesn't want to throw away the life he so narrowly saved in the punishment cave. Chris sighs, asking Thurn if he can really stand by those words, as father is the one who allowed him to enter the training grounds. Thurn looks surprised by this, and we hear somebody else say that she respects the Count's orders. But she knows he's not very trustworthy, and we introduce Melon, the Deputy Commander of the Knights. Based off her dark energy, she's at least a 4-star, and it seems like they intend to scare him off from the start, but he is used to threats like this. He bows, greeting her, and she's just surprised that he withstood her dark energy. He says that seeing as the Deputy Commander is stepping in, there's no helping it, and he'll prove that he is qualified to use this training ground. She asks how exactly he plans to do that, and he says that he'll fight against one of the fiends here and win. She tells him that his jokes have gone too far, but he says that he's not saying it as a joke. Instead, he would like to request that she refrains from using dark energy. Since surely she knows due to his debauched lifestyle, his capacity for dark energy is far from what it might have been, and he'd prefer an unarmed duel if possible. Melon thinks to herself that even if it's just for a duel, they can't have the heir getting hurt, and this is pretty troublesome. She asks if he really thinks he'll stand a chance in an unarmed duel. Chris says that they'll have to see about it, and he wonders who he should pick as his opponent. He then snaps his fingers and says that Thurn will probably make do. Thurn starts to get pissed by this, and Melon says that he should find a more suitable opponent, as Thurn's level is a 2-star. Chris explains that a 2-star is a level no ordinary 13-year-old can reach. If you don't possess the raw talent for it, it doesn't matter if you're 13 or 23, you won't even scratch the surface of the level of power. But of course, Chris is also not an ordinary bastard. He says that if he's going to prove himself either way, he should fight someone stronger than him. He thinks fighting Thurn would be for the best, and he asks Thurn what he thinks, saying surely he's not scared of his brother. Thurn looks pissed, saying that he accepts the duel. We then see all of them surrounding them, and they tell Thurn to take the opportunity to destroy Chris. And if he doesn't do it properly, they'll have special training today. Chris asks Melon how they're meant to decide the winner, or if they just go until the opponent surrenders. Melon says that this is pretty insolent, and he doesn't even know his place, but they should just go until one side is incapacitated. But she really thinks it would be a good idea for Thurn to cripple him by taking a leg or two. Chris asks Thurn if he heard the rules, asking what he's going to do, since he's going to be in for a serious ass whooping. Thurn starts to get pissed by his taunts, saying that he'll make sure he never runs his mouth. But while he's distracted, Chris smacks the absolute piss out of him, which completely catches Thurn off guard. Chris asks what's the matter, saying that the fight's already begun. Thurn looks back up towards him, and swings, telling him to shut up. Chris explains that this is practically cheating. As a fiend who hasn't even reached 1 star yet, he doesn't stand a chance against someone with dark energy. But in a barehanded duel, he fought on countless battlefields in his past life, so it's not really a big deal, as he knees Thurn right in the stomach. He says besides, if they only count the dominion of light powers achieved in the punishment cave, he is at least a 3 star. The other trainees are asking what the hell they are witnessing, as Thurn's hunched over holding his stomach. Chris asks if he's crying, and if he wants him to blow on his boo-boo, just straight taunting his little brother. Thurn starts asking him what trick he pulled, but of course, Chris is satisfied, saying that seeing him in this state is refreshing. There's nothing like a trick here, and that his brother is just a bit too weak. Thurn starts to get pissed, but Chris continues taunting him, saying that he's so quiet he can't hear him. A black aura then starts to envelop Thurn's hand, and he dashes forward, telling Chris he's going to kill him, coming in for a left. Chris dodges the attack, saying he's pretty fast, though this is the spirit he was looking for. As Thurn continues punching towards his face and missing, Chris says this still isn't enough, as he raises his hand, cutting off the aura from the rest of his body, and even Thurn realizes that his dark energy is starting to dissipate. Chris hits him with an uppercut, saying that fighting is all about instinct. As Thurn's eyes go white, and he falls to the floor, the rest all look surprised, and they start wondering if maybe Thurn let his guard down, saying that maybe he withdrew his dark energy because he was worried he would hurt Chris. Otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. But Melon seems to have a better understanding, as she's genuinely surprised. Chris says with this, surely he's proven he's qualified, and Melon says yes. Chris thanks her, and puts on a calm demeanor, but in reality, he's just hella glad that it worked, saying that now he's going to devour everything, swordsman and magic alike. It then jumps back to the house, and Chris explains that he has reached 1 star in dark magic. Since he's still not fully accustomed to handling dark energy, and there was a lot of residue left over by Christian, it took longer than he expected. As for wielding the power of light at the same time, he'll need to raise his level further for that to be possible. He rings the little bell, only for a woman to slowly appear in his room, asking if he called for her, and we are introduced to Mary, his assigned maid. He says he can't believe they are using a high-level evil spirit, a banshee, as a maid, and admittedly though, it was due to Christian's constant troublemaking that they couldn't. He says he'll definitely replace her later, and he tells her to just give him some juice, as he'll drink it and then leave to train. She asks if she should prepare it with human blood, but he tells her just to make it with strawberries. She tells him that blood juice tastes super good though, and he tells her that he wants strawberries. She continues, and they have a little bit of banter back and forth. Sometime later, as Chris is heading out somewhere, we hear Cox yelling out to him, asking if he's going to train even though it's so early, and then he worries he is just pushing himself. Of course, he's pleased and proud that he's so diligent, as he believed in him even when everybody else didn't. Chris says to get low to this guy, and then starts to release some killing intent, saying that he never asked him to believe in him, and asks who he is to decide whether he should believe in him in the first place or not. Cox is startled and then apologizes for overstepping his boundaries, and then tells him to have a good training session. As Cox leaves, Chris says that there's something really fishy about this dude. At the training grounds now, Chris says that everybody here has way more docile eyes than before, and that now that their guard is down, he wants to try to win them over little by little. We see some bird dude watching Chris swing his sword, and he walks away towards a tent and goes to inform the deputy commander, Melon, that Chris has showed up again at the training grounds today. Melon just wonders what the hell he is planning, and what that duel was about back then. Thurn's movements were definitely impressive, but to think he would dispel his dark energy at that precise moment, she wonders if he saw through the flow of battle, and if that's the case, then he might have the talent to surpass Lord Eshad de Baron, the direct head of the main family. But she decides that's probably not the case, as he's still just a bastard. Also, he has already lost his dark energy through his horrible lifestyle, and it's impossible for him to close that gap now. She hears a lot of noise outside, and decides to go check it out, asking what's the deal with it. one of the men tells her that Chris seems to have had a small conflict with a squire. The other trainees wonder what happened, saying that Cannon is a 1-star fiend, and they wonder if maybe Chris also reached 1 star. Melon looks surprised, but Chris says that he wanted to see the rumored prowess of the Great Black Swamp Knights, but it doesn't seem like they live up to their reputation, asking if there's anybody else who wants to stand up, saying surely they're not a cowardly order of knights. They start to get frustrated by this, and one man steps forward, introducing himself as Torin. Chris says that they fall right into his trap, gesturing him to go ahead and attack, and Torin leaps through the air with his sword overhead. Chris says he never expected them to obediently teach the knight's secret techniques to him. Since that's the case, he has no choice but to steal it this way. As he starts fighting back Torin's blade, he starts taking note of how they hold the sword and their footwork, saying that this is the mud swordsmanship he's only heard about in rumors, and he starts to mimic it, saying that maybe it'll work out if he does this. He smacks Torin straight across the face, causing him to drop his weapon too, but it's a huge surprise to Melon. Chris is just happy that he managed to pull off the technique. As Torin lays their face down ass up, Chris sits atop him, and everybody else says they can't believe he was actually strong, saying that his darkness core was ruined, so how did he reach 1 star? Melon realizes that this means she wasn't mistaken back then. Chris says this is disappointing, and he had too much faith in the knights, and if their skills are this pathetic, he'd say it's all the deputy commander's fault. They start to wonder if they should stop him because he's crazy for taunting her, and Melon says she understands he's happy about his victory, but he's getting a bit too carried away. He says it's better if she shows him the skills of the Black Swamp Knights. She draws one of the trainees' swords, swings it very forcibly right beside Chris, sending up tons of dust, completely shattering the ground beside him. She says that she only needs 1 second to beat a bastard like himself, while releasing a very deep purple aura. Chris asks if she's really planning on fighting against someone like him with her full power, and that they should only use dark energy up to the 1-star level, and prohibit dark magic, as well as using only wooden weapons. She starts to exchange her blades, saying that 1 star is more than enough, and she'll break both of his legs with just half of that. He says if that's the case, he'll put both of his legs on the line, asking what she's willing to risk. She says that anything's fine, because he won't be walking away from here today, as she dashes forward. He blocks her attack with the sword, but it is definitely heavy, as we see him starting to get pushed back. She continues swinging all over, but he is managing to keep up by blocking and parrying. Even the other trainees notice this, saying that he's held up for a while, considering he's up against Melon. But they say that it must be because her main weapon is the greatsword, but we see she's frustrated, saying that for some reason her attacks are not reaching him. Even though he's a weakling through and through, he shouldn't be any match for her. She says that when he fought Thurn, and the fight just now with Torin, this happened as well. Chris says that it seems things aren't going her way, which makes her even more pissed. As she starts to imbue some aura into her blade, preparing some kind of heavy-ass attack, which seems like she might be breaking the rules a little bit, she swings down directly towards where he's standing. Chris ducks to the side, saying that now's his chance. As he runs forward, he hits her with a headbutt straight to the face, which catches her off guard. As she's reeling from the attack, she's surprised to see the blood in her hand, but Chris is glad that his gamble paid off, saying that Melon is a spell sword, so as long as her dark magic is bound, the moment her defense slips, she wouldn't be able to block the opening with physical power alone. So if she was a feint who focused on the sword, that might not have worked. She looks at the blood, still in disbelief, then begins to laugh hella loudly. She says that she never ever would have imagined a headbutt, and it seems like she's looked down on him too much, and she'll focus from now on. I like her. Chris starts pointing to her neck, though, saying that the fight's already over, as he scratched her with his nail during the headbutt, and if he had laced his nails with poison, surely she would have known what would have happened to her. She says that she accepts the defeat, so to tell her what he desires, but in return, she wants the opportunity to fight him once more. He says if she wants a rematch, he'll have to grant a second request too. She says she'll do anything, and he walks close, saying that if that's the case, once he's right into her face, he asks if she would kneel before him. She's surprised by this, and says that surely he understands that is an impossible condition to meet. Her loyalty lies with the main family of the Dark Magic clan, House Baron. He says of course he knows that she is here on an excursion from the main family, However, all of this itself would be resolved if he were to become the young lord of the clan. She's surprised by this, and tells him that's utter nonsense, as the 5 young lords whose succession rights have been recognized are all from the direct descendants of the main family. He says there's no rule that says a branch family member can't become a young lord, but about her second duel request, asking if she would like to do it a month from now. He says about the next time, they won't limit themselves, and she says that he'll have no chance of defeating her. He says that who knows, as few things are truly impossible in this world. She sits there just staring at him, still with blood on her face. He bows, saying that he'll see her in a month, and on that day he'll make her realize who her loyalty should truly lie with. It then jumps to him handing his letter of recommendation to his father, saying that the fiend's fundamentals are lackluster, and they'll need to focus more on their training. We then get a flashback to Melon talking to his father, saying that Chris is a genius. Even with his low star rank, he easily defeated the ones with solid foundations, and even herself. He asks if she's serious, and she says yes, it was a rare fight for her, one she could enjoy. His father is still having issues trusting his son, but his work is paying off. Chris asks if there's something on his face, but his father says it's nothing, but as promised, he'll grant him the key to the library. As Chris leaves, he says this was all he wanted, and he obtained the library key, and even changed Melon's mind. And that Melon is a fiend from the main family of the Dark Magic clan. During the Age of Destruction, she was active as a 6-star high fiend, so if he wants to take control of the entire Dark Magic clan, he needs to make her one of his people. Of course, he hasn't completely won her over, but 1 month will be enough, because he's a genius. And speaking of Count Khazar, the look his father had earlier was definitely one of pride for his son, but he supposes that makes sense, because even fiends have familial attachments, and maybe he'll even turn out to be a better father than the one he had in his previous life. And he finally embraces Count Khazar as his father, saying that he won't disappoint him. As he heads into the library, he says that there's blood magic, summoning studies, curse studies, and they're all things that are forbidden in the Dominion of Light. He picks out one of the books, and as he moves it backwards, he sees Mary smiling at him, which causes the dude to die of a heart attack on the spot. He asks why the hell she's here, and she laughs, saying why else, as she was once the librarian at this place after all, and she causes all the books to start floating around. Then says that maybe he came here knowing this, and wanted to monopolize her all to himself. He tells her to shut up, and she says that he's making her heart go crazy with such direct language, and they continue their banter. If you've watched till the end, comment, Lovecraft, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.